What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Steven Ostentoski here of MGoFish, bringing you another video, a little vlog here. I know the channel hasn't been active as of late, but looking to change that. I'll have recruit review coming up for the class of 2020 coming soon here in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, just want to talk about kind of everything that's been going on Michigan Twitter, especially around social media, the importance of graphics and video and social media there. So if you've been active on Michigan Twitter, you've seen lots of tweets about that in the graphic department. I'll put them around here for you to read through. But yeah, there's been a lot of discussion overall, and just wanted to go through some of those arguments and comments and give my take on them. So number one, importance of social media and recruiting today for a football program. So and it's not just football, but basketball as well. But mainly it should be seen as a tool. It is a tool. And I categorize it under something that I call differentiators. It's a thing that every major program needs to have and only stands out if it's on one side of the spectrum, whether positively or negatively. So when it comes to recruiting, you have these differentiators, and then you have decision makers. Decision makers are things like coaches, playing time, success on the field, proximity to home, academics, and money. You could say that those six are things that, and there's others as well, but those are some of the major items that help a recruit decide, should I go to this program to play or should I not? And then social media falls under what I'll call the differentiators. And these are things that can make a program stand out. They're more geared towards recruiting, but they're things that are nice to haves, that the more important a program is, or I would say the larger the audience is, the more competitive a program is, the more important they are. So these are things like facilities, uniforms, and then like social media, so graphic and videos for recruits and for your team. Just an example of each of those: Michigan spent millions of dollars on a new locker room and weight room facility. They lean into that pretty heavily with virtual tours. They posted on social media a bunch. It's something that they really leaned into to try to attract recruits for visits. You can think of Oregon with their uniforms in the 2000s. They had something over 150 uniform combinations. That was a differentiator. That was something no other program really had at the time, since they were partnered with Nike, and Nike originated out of Oregon. Something they leaned into, something to get recruits onto the campus to try to attract them to their fashion style. And then finally, social media, right? So having great commitment edits, having special videos. I would categorize Michigan's signing of the stars event. That's a big differentiator, something that no other program was doing, something that really leaned into their graphics department and what they were outputting there. So no recruit really decides based on those differentiators, but it's a big part of what builds the culture, the buzz around a program. The goal of the differentiator is to start that conversation. There's this special guy at Michigan who's creating these edits. Wow, I kind of really want that edit. In order to do that, I'm going to have to talk to the people at this program. Wow, those facilities look really great. It'd be really cool to do an official visit there. That gives Michigan or another program the opportunity to make their pitch while that recruit is on campus, right? So there are things that open the door for possible further recruitment down the line, and that's all it should be. So going back to social media, every program now has a social media presence. That's just a necessity. And like I said, it stands out if you're on either end of the bell curve, right? If you think of the bell curve, most programs are in the middle, but if you're at either the top end or the negative end, that stands out. The program that is really invested in social media, LSU, towards their run to the national championship, really great videos that caught a lot of people's attention, got a lot of notoriety, and it stands out, right, for future recruitment, knowing that this program is really invested in that program and that they could feature in a really cool film moving forward. So there's a linear relationship between the popularity of a program and the necessity for these differentiators. If Alabama has a really bad social media presence, or if their facilities are really bad, that's going to negatively affect their recruiting. And it's also a thing that other programs with that kind of money, Ohio State, Michigan, other large programs, Texas, they're going to be putting money into those areas. Where a smaller program, think of like Eastern Michigan, right? They're competing against Central Michigan, Western Michigan. Things like great facilities, social media presence aren't as large of an item for those programs because other schools don't really have the budget. It's not as big of a thing on their priority where larger programs, the more audience you have, the more likely whatever your output is going to be in those areas is going to gain traction with recruits and with the fans. So for social media specifically, it's the program's entrance to what recruits see first, so social media, and it's also the entrance to the fan's voice. And the fan's voice is louder than anything that the program could output. So controlling that voice can only be done by the quality that you put out there, and that's why it can be used as a really, really useful tool in actually recruiting recruits. So while it's only one piece of the puzzle, the better you are at executing that, the more impact it can have overall. All right, so that's number one. That was a long discussion there. Number two, that there's been a downfall after Ty Rodgers left. Okay, if you don't know Ty Rodgers, he was Michigan's first real videographer. There was clearly a falling out between him and Aaron Bills, who I believe is the director of football media. Rodgers started freelancing while he was working at Michigan. Apparently there was some disagreement there, and there was a falling out, and Ty Rodgers moved on to his freelance career. So I actually don't dislike the current guys producing the video content. They're not the same personality that Ty Rodgers was on Twitter, and it does feel a bit formulaic. So they're just kind of videos out there. They don't really have a brand that kind of Ty Rodgers brought to that. Yes, Ty Rodgers was really, really good, but he was also the first one, so it made a big impact with the fan base overall there. And like I said, the social media impact of the other guys who are currently there isn't as much as Ty Rodgers. So I think it has a larger effect to not see those guys with as large of a following as Ty Rodgers has. Graphics were always in Aaron Bill's department. So if there's any negativity towards the graphics themselves, that wasn't something that Ty Rodgers was really working on, at least to my knowledge. So it's a bit disconnected there from what I see people's comments about, well, the program is, social media direction has gone downhill since Ty Rodgers left. I think, sure, if videos, you want to specifically focus on that, there's an argument there. But the graphics department, I think, is very different and not something that Rodgers had a whole lot to do with. And I've seen a lot of bad blood on Twitter between Bills and Ty Rodgers, and responses like this, I'll post it up here. You can tell there's some bitterness there, so just take them with a grain of salt. Clearing house isn't going to happen, and it's not useful, right? There's other things that can be done. So some examples recently that people are complaining about, I'll post them up right here. I agree. They look a little outdated, a little formulaic, and lack some creativity from the past. And I think the main thing is there's lots of fans and students that would be willing to contribute and have a lot of skill to help bring some of that creativity back, right? Michigan's a huge university, lots of students in graphic design. I'm sure that you could start a program for internships or for competitions to help contribute there. Having a lot of voices can really help drive creativity, and seems like that's not something that's happening. So I don't know. I don't have this introspection into the program, but it seems like there's a missed opportunity to utilize the resources that Michigan has at their disposal, whether it be money or the university students themselves. And then I would say the main thing I'm disappointed when looking at some of these edits is that they're very formulaic, right? So it's important to establish a theme with your recruitment. A great example, if you look at BILLIONBUS and what he did for Syracuse, these edits have a theme. They're comic book themed, right? They all have similar art style. Obviously, it's BILLIONBUS, so he has his art style. All in the same theme. It's not formulaic. They're all very unique. They're independent pieces, where these edits from Michigan seem to be just very cookie cutter. You could take any recruit, swap them in 10 minutes, and that's it. They're not curated for each individual recruit, and that's frustrating because with as much money, resources that Michigan has at their disposal, they really should be doing better. So that brings me to the third discussion point I saw, that Michigan should hire BILLIONBUS, right? So BILLIONBUS's work for Syracuse was on ESPN, Bleacher Report. It was pretty much everywhere because differentiator, they were at the top of the National Signing Day recruits. And that's exactly the point, right? He used the tool. Syracuse was smart to use that style to their advantage and create some buzz, and they got there. So I would love personally to see BILLIONBUS at Michigan, but I wouldn't say that's what Michigan should do, right? That's a graphic designer that they could do. I think Michigan is just lacking creativity overall in their graphics department and need to differentiate there. If you hire BILLIONBUS, well, that's great, and I think it's a lot of things recruits would want because his artwork is unmatched and one of a kind. But then Michigan is just following in Syracuse's footsteps, right? You want to be a differentiator. You don't follow. You differentiate. You create something new. You create something unique with the resources you have available. So while I don't think it's a bad idea, it's not the solution, right? So I think while I would still love to see it, it's not going to solve the problems there, and the problems need to be solved elsewhere. So my final thoughts is that everything I'm seeing is seemingly hyperbolic. It's not the end of the world. Michigan has done better in the past and should be doing better now. I'm not saying it's excusable, but it's just a differentiator. It's hard to say exactly why this is the case, right? Maybe they're finding the budget elsewhere. You know, Ty Rodgers had a salary of upwards of $80,000. If they're using that better for scouting or game plan, etc., you know, who's to say that that's not a better approach to getting to beat Ohio State? You know, if they spend $60,000 on a scout that's going to beat Ohio State instead of graphics department, I don't think anyone's complaining. So we don't have insight to that, but that's why I'm not bashing the social media program, because I don't know what's going on. I do agree that there needs to be some changes to switch it up, because right now we're towards the bottom of that bell curve. We're not a differentiator there, so we can't use it effectively as a tool, where right now we're not in a location to do anything but differentiate in those areas, right? Use our facilities, use social media. We need all of those because of our lack of bowl wins lately, our lack of wins over Ohio State. So I guess my final point here will be that our voices get out there. You know, on Twitter, lots of recruits see that negativity. You know, Donovan Jeter saw this. There's recent commits who have seen the negativity. The same people complaining on Twitter about these things are the same people who want to see Michigan perform better. How do you expect Michigan to perform better without the top-notch recruits? And what recruit wants to go to a program where all they see is negativity, right? So as fans, of course, you know, our impact is low individually, but as numbers, it creates an aura around the program. And if it's nothing but negativity, that's not going to be a good foundation for recruiting overall. So if Michigan's social media department is the fuel to the fire, we are the matches, right? So while I would prefer that Michigan improve their social media output right now and add creativity to that lessens the fuel to that fire, but we're ultimately the matches, right? So spreading positivity, ensuring that any criticisms we have are constructive and not destructive, but also, you know, not letting that overshadow the commitment of a player. You know, if someone commits and all you say is, wow, this artwork is terrible, then that's overshadowing the overall positive effect is this commitment of this player to the university that you love. So I guess just be mindful, be constructive, be positive above all else, and you can still be constructive with your criticisms in those scenarios. So while Michigan still needs to do better, I think we can all, you know, take a hard look in the mirror about what we're doing and how our, how what we have to say can affect recruiting overall. And to be really safe, just don't tweet at recruits. How about that? But anyways, it's gone on way too long. I'll be back with episode 1 of Recruit Review for the class of 2020 very soon. Follow me on Twitter at Steven Toski. Follow MGoFish at MGoFish. Beyond that, guys, take it easy, be safe out there, wash your hands, and go blue.